Protecting our community is worth a shot. Vaccines can help protect you, your family, and our community. Stop by James Drugstore today.
And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, and today I am joined by a gentleman who has had a very wild 18 months, and as we lead into the next school year, he wanted to come take a stop by, talk to us about what happened this summer, some of the things that are going to be going on this year. So I'm going to let him introduce himself. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the booth.
Thank you, McHugh. And for those who I may need to introduce myself to, my name is Joe Murphy, and I'm superintendent of Livingston Parish Public Schools and very proud to be superintendent of the best school system in the state.
And we appreciate you taking the time to stop by with us. School starts for, I believe it's A through K on Wednesday. I got that right. Nice. Mm-hmm. And L through the rest of the alphabet, I believe that's Z on Thursday, and then everybody on campus on Friday. Also want to remind folks or let folks know that Mr. David Gray is sitting off camera, just in case you hear a detached voice speak up at some point. That is him. I'd have him yell and introduce himself, but he'd get mad at me. So today we want to cover a couple of bare bones subjects and just talk about, hey, we're coming back to school, end of a very long, hot summer. So I'm sure a lot of kids are ready to get back, see more of their friends on a regular basis. First and foremost, just high-level statistics. It's 46 school sites, correct?
That's correct. We got 46 school sites, and we'll welcome back approximately 26,000 kids on August the 11th.
Wow. And just over 4,000 employees, correct?
We're right around 4,000 employees, McHugh. That includes all our employees, including our contract employees.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about sort of the vibe in the room as you, as a school system, started to gather for sort of these end of summer, moving back into school. I'm sure a lot of teachers were excited. Not as much virtual to do this year, trying to get more back in the face-to-face teaching. Tell us a little bit about how that meeting went.
Well, we've introduced our staff again to our school year this year, the 21-22 school year. And, I think one of the things that we learned from last year's experiences going through all this is just how important it is for our kids to be in school and how important it is for them to have that person-to-person instruction face-to-face on a daily basis. And this year we'll be opening in that format where we are face-to-face daily instruction for all our grades, all the way from pre-K all the way to 12. And I can't tell you how people are excited about that. They love the idea that they will be able to see their children on their campuses every day.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, not just because you get to see those kids, and they're in the classroom, you get that face-to-face interaction. But, also from just a point of there are some kids where school's a big part of their life. They love to see their friends. They love to see their teachers. It's a big deal. And you really feel like from a teacher's perspective, of course, there were some frustrations with digital and that kind of thing. But there's a relationship with those kids. Yes. It's very important. This year, I know that David was elsewhere for start of school last year, but you and I were right down the street at Dim Springs Junior High. It was sort of an interesting start of the year. Can we expect some similar protocols, or will they be backed off a little bit in terms of temperature taking and that sort of thing?
Well, there are some changes on protocols, and the example you just gave is one of them. We will not be taking temperature checks as students enter or leave our campuses this year. We do still have a lot of the protocols in place. We'll be thoroughly cleaning and disinfecting our schools on a daily basis, sometimes more than certainly once a day. We will also be trying to distance, to the greatest extent possible while they're on campus. And we will also try to pay attention to the way our children enter and exit our campuses, just to try to create as much distance and mitigate any issues that we might have moving forward.
Gotcha. And there's you don't want to call it the elephant in the room, but it kind of is. There was a proclamation from the governor that came right before school was supposed to start. We're going to talk about that in a little more depth, more towards the end of the show. I want to talk a little bit more about what happened this summer. There's a lot of moving pieces, and several pieces that's a lot of pieces. A lot of new things happening in several different pieces of the district. First, let's talk about Denham Elementary and Southside Junior High / Elementary. First and foremost, Denham Elementary. it's always the little things that take the longest.
Yeah.
And so I know that the hope was to have that open for this school year. That didn't quite happen. A lot of little pieces. I'm addicted to the word pieces today. A lot of the small finishings, still trying to bring that together. What's your understanding about what we're looking at in terms of the completion of that project?
Well, we are certainly hope that project is completed, this fall. It is our expectation to be able to move into that school over the Christmas holidays or at the beginning of the second semester. I will tell you that I was in touch with the architect actually today. He actually sent me some information, and we're about 86% complete on that campus right now. And you're right, that 86% is good. That last 14%, we'll have to work hard to get that, but it is the small finishing touches. But more than anything, we want to be sure that school is absolutely ready to move into. And what we're really hoping to do at that school is do a soft opening at that school, McHugh, and bring in the kids and bring in the parents and bring in the community and let them see that school before it actually opens. Because I'm going to tell you, it's spectacular. We're really looking forward to it. And it is going to be an awesome educational space for our children there at Denham Elementary.
Have seen some pictures on social media of some groups that have been able to go in. It does look very impressive. And of course, making more use of the square footage there. It's a 2-story facility. And it's very pretty, but a lot of people have told me it's very pretty, but there is an old schoolhouse feel
There
to
is.
the outside.
And that was really by design because we're so close to the downtown historic district here in Denham Springs. We felt like that we might need to mimic that a little bit at that site. With that said, we think we can mimic that old school look. And if you know anything about the original Denham Springs High School, it kind of mimicked what the new Denham Springs Elementary kind of looks like.
Sure.
So we're excited about that. When you step through the doors, though, what we want you to see is a 21st century learning space for our kids.
Sure.
And we worked really hard. The principal of that school, the school board members have worked really hard to ensure that our children have what they need when they step in that space.
Sure. And I know that it was a long process. It wasn't just a fight with FEMA. There was a lot of discussions on what you wanted it to look
Absolutely.
like and what a 21st century learning experience looked like. I actually got to sit down with you and a former school board member, Buddy Mincy, when y'all were having some back and forth discussions about the other campus that's being rebuilt, Southside Mega Campus. There is steel up, but as you and I discussed just a little while ago, still more steel to come.
I don't think we'll get all the steel up till probably September.
Okay. So if you have not passed by there, of course, it is just south of the interstate on Pete's Highway. Going to be an impressive campus. Going to be huge.
It absolutely, I will tell you that it's about 185,000 square feet. So, it's a massive structure. And what we need to remember is it is 2 schools. It's not just one school. It's the elementary school and then a middle school. And we'll have the ability to separate those campuses, not physically, but we'll have the ability to compartmentalize those campuses so that we don't have crossover between our elementary and our middle schools, unless we deem it appropriate and unless we find reasons why that should occur on that campus. And I absolutely think there'll be times when we want to see crossover between our elementary kids and our middle school kids. Peer interaction is the best thing in the world.
Sure.
And if we can get those middle school children to help those elementary children sometimes, that's never a bad thing.
No, I mean, sometimes everybody needs a little mentorship.
Absolutely.
Every now and again.
Including me.
So speaking on the combined campuses between
Yes.
Southside Elementary and Southside Junior, of course, Southside Elementary inside the city limits of Denham Springs has been turned into the high school STEM center.
Yes.
And that's science, technology, engineering, and math. One of the interesting things that happened recently there was a connectivity summit.
Yes.
David's going to be writing more in depth on that, but that has a lot to do with the school system.
Absolutely.
We found out that there were a lot of families that, especially during COVID, when there was virtual options, found out it was roughly about 26% of families did not have any kind of access. So Are you feeling, especially after that summit, a little more confident in the years to come that connectivity is going to come to more parts of the parish?
You know, the reason for that summit was to try to bring all the different governmental entities together to discuss possible solutions to improve the connectivity here in Livingston Parish. So to answer your question, do I feel confident about it? I feel pretty confident that if we work together as a community, the school system, the parish council, and all the other entities here, whether it be the providers through AT&T or ETEL or Charter or whoever else might be here, along with the Public Service Commission, if we will just communicate, and I believe what we're fixing to get involved in is a committee to look at that with all these different entities in one group. And of course, we will, as the school board, will have a representative on that committee. And we do have quite a bit of information that I feel would probably be beneficial to that group. To say that we have it all, that's not the case. But I think that we can certainly add to that conversation. And yes, I am hopeful and confident that we can increase connectivity in this parish, not only for our kids, but for our community and our parents and all our businesses and our organizations. We feel very strongly about that.
Sure. And speaking of that, I'm sure that much like the teachers and faculty of these schools have learned quite a bit because of COVID and how to interact with kids and things of that nature. I'm sure your IT department has also been working diligently
Absolutely.
to try to provide, new ways, innovative ways for these teachers to stay in touch with kids.
Yeah, we have. We've had several initiatives that we've used, and I don't know if y'all are aware, but this year we were able to have enough funding that we will issue every sixth grader and every ninth grader in this parish a device.
Okay.
Now, the concept behind that was that device would follow the sixth grader through middle school, and then obviously that device would follow the ninth grader through the high school years.
Okay.
So that's really the concept there, and it just gives us a few more tools to work with so that when that child needs that device, they have access to it. Now, I will tell you that is also in addition to what we've already added to all our schools and through other funding sources. So we're excited about that. Every sixth grader and every ninth grader will be issued a device this year at Livingston Parish Public Schools.
It's good to hear. Progress being made. I know a lot of people will say, but it wasn't soon enough. But sometimes, it's hard to stand something up from nothing.
Well, let's be honest about this, McHugh. The connectivity issue is not a short-term solution. We all know that. The other night at the summit when we were there, I think everybody recognized this is a long-term commitment.
Sure.
That we're going to have to get on this. We're going to have to stay on this. And it's not something that's going to be solved overnight.
Sure.
But as we've said just a few minutes ago, if we work together as a community on this and all the entities come together, I'm confident we can find solutions to that.
Very good. So moving, we spent a lot of time here on the western side of the parish and did get my directions right this time. I've been called out for having some trouble in the past. Moving over to the eastern side,
yes.
Albany has made two headlines this summer, actually, a purchase of some land, as well as, and we'll discuss that in a minute, but more importantly, they had, I want to make sure I'm correct, about a 2-week
that's correct.
educational venture called Hornet Academy.
That's correct.
Trying to help kids catch up. I know you don't have to go. I know you kind of try to leave these individual parts of the district to sort of manage themselves, but how excited were you to see something like that?
Well, any time that we can provide additional services for our children, I'm excited about that. Now, this particular venture down in Albany, which included Albany High School, Albany Middle School, Albany Upper, and Albany Lower, it gave those children 2 weeks worth of additional resources, and there was several different focuses during this academy. This was already on top of a very expanded summer program that we offered this year to 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 7th, and 9th through 12 student summer programs that we normally do. So anything that we can do into addition of what we're doing from a summer perspective, we're all about that.
Sure.
So anything that we can do to provide other opportunities for our students, we're very excited about.
And I believe that was headed by teacher Louis Sansovich. Is that correct? So hoping maybe that some other people maybe in the future will emulate what Mr. Sansovich has done.
We will certainly look for other opportunities in the future to see if we can offer better opportunities for our kids in the summer.
So I know that the summer programs that you spoke of, it was also a test. We had a story about it back towards the beginning of the summer when the mask mandate was lifted.
That's correct.
It's kind of a test to have teachers and students and faculty and support staff all on campus trying things without masks, correct? Typically a success, would you say?
Yeah, I think it was absolutely a success. I think that we used some other mitigating strategies, in the midst of that.
Okay.
We really tried to keep class sizes down to a bare minimum
Sure.
per teacher. We really tried to distance and tried to keep those kids separate. And, during the summertime, we focus so much on academics and English and math. But I want our parents to know that we also focused on some social emotional skills in the summer where we're trying to take care of these children. Let's face it, these children have been traumatized by their experiences over the last year and a half. So we feel like that not only do we need to take care of them from an academic standpoint, but we also need to take care of them from a whole child perspective to be sure that they're going to be okay socially and emotionally as they move forward. This has been tough for everybody.
Sure.
And it's especially tough on our children. And anytime that we can do something to promote the social welfare of our kids or the social well-being of our kids, we're certainly going to do that.
Sure. And as we get into that part where we discuss COVID-19, anything else from this summer you would like to discuss before we move into?
No, I would like to think, because, a lot of these children attended because their parents allowed them to attend. There were very few you have to go to summer school children there.
Sure.
So I would like to thank the parents for allowing us the opportunity to work with their kids in the summer. What makes Livingston Parish Public Schools so good is we are a part of the community, and we want to remain a part of this community, and we want to try to listen to the things that we need to listen to at moving forward so that parents have confidence in us when they load them little ones on the bus or them big ones get in a car and they drive to our campuses. They know that Livingston Parish Public Schools has their children's interest at heart.
Right. And so speaking on that, little bit of I guess you'd call it a pivot. The governor, I say recently, it's all relative, but just in the past couple of weeks, reinstituted the mask mandate because of the spread of COVID and the Delta variant.
Yes.
How has that sort of changed, the mindset of the school system as we move into this new year?
I don't mind talking about that at all, because in all honesty, right prior to the governor's proclamation, we had crafted our operational guidelines for the 21-22 school year. And if I can just be bluntly honest about this, when the proclamation came out, we changed one sentence on our operational guidelines, and that was the masking requirement. So the big question becomes, were we going to require masks before the governor's proclamation? And I can tell you that no, we were not. It was going to be an optional process for our kids. But once the governor's proclamation came out and the statewide indoor mask mandate went into effect, we felt like we had no choice but to follow the governor's proclamation. Therefore, that led to what's released now. All this information is on our website. It's on our social media feeds, whether you're talking about our operational guidelines or whether you're talking about our quarantining and close contact procedures and policies. All that information is readily available at www.lpsb.org or on our Twitter feeds or on our Facebook feeds. So it's all out there, and I'm sure people have gone and looked at that.
Sure. So a couple of follow-up questions to that. One of the things you brought up was, my brain went somewhere else. But one of the things you brought up was the quarantine and close contact.
Yes, sir.
That is different than it was last year. Can you give us a brief overview of how it differs?
I would love to quote it out just verbatim here, but to be honest with you, I'm afraid I'll mess up my 10, 14, 7, 8, 5, and all that. I will tell you this, that there has been some relaxing of some of the guidelines regarding close contact quarantining. There are some scenarios where students and staff, if they're a close contact, can return on a shorter term basis. Last year we started out with 14 days for positive cases. Well, we're at 10 days now for positive cases. Now, I'm going to give myself a mulligan here. Please don't hold me to everything I say because I don't have this information in front of me. So if I misspeak, please just go to our website and verify it so that I'm not giving out false information here. So there are some relaxing as far as close contacts. Let's face it, if somebody's positive, they have to quarantine 10 days.
Right.
It's just that simple.
Right.
If they're positive. And that would be from the day after they exhibit symptoms.
Right.
So they would be out for 10, and that would apply to students and employees.
Gotcha.
And while we're talking about this, I might as well go ahead and talk about this now. Last year COVID leave was a big thing with our staff and employees. Right now there is no existing COVID leave. However, we are looking at some circumstances where we might be able to apply some COVID leave for positive cases.
Gotcha. Okay. The other thing we want to discuss is it's sort of a two-parter that comes together. Of course, the school board and the school system has legal guidance from an attorney. And you have already spoken to him about this situation with the governor.
Just about every day.
Sure, yeah. And I imagine y'all have been in pretty close contact. But, where you have arrived is that the governor is well within his right to do what has been done for the health, safety, and welfare of children.
Well, I've said this, and I believe I said it at the last school board meeting that David was in attendance. We're under a public health emergency. Therefore, when we're under a public health emergency, the governor is granted extraordinary rights under that public health emergency. His public health emergency proclamation, therefore, as we see it, carries the weight of enforceability and responsibility on the school system to comply with that proclamation. Now, I don't want anybody to misread that as to how I personally feel about this. It really doesn't matter how I personally feel about this, but I do have a responsibility to protect Livingston Parish Public Schools from a liability perspective moving forward. So, yes, we're going to follow the governor's mandate, and I will tell you this, and I cannot speak for every district in the state of Louisiana, but I'm unaware if any other districts are not following that particular mandate. Now, with that said, I'm not including private or charter schools. I'm including public education schools. Because
Sure.
I really can't speak to what private schools are or not doing, and I really can't speak to what charter schools are or are not doing.
Sure. No, and we understand that, but we just wanted to ask about that subject. And the obvious follow-up question is, can parents and students expect there to be consequences for willfully ignoring this mask mandate?
I'm glad you brought that up. Certainly, it is not our intention at all to delve into the disciplinary realm because a child does not wear a mask. However, if that rises to the level of willful disobedience or disrespect to authority, we will have to take some measures. However, I want to assure everybody that is absolutely a last resort, and we would never go into this school year looking to take disciplinary action because a child, especially a young child, doesn't have a mask. We're going to do everything we can. We'll have masks available for those children.
I was going to ask you.
All that'll be available for the child. If the child forgets his mask, we're going to give him a mask. And let me talk to my youngest children's parents right now. As you know, the mandate, actually, the governor's proclamation covers K-5, which we understand that it is very, very difficult to get our real small children to wear that mask on a regular basis. What I would ask parents is that you give us the opportunity to use this as a teachable moment for those children. We understand that that child is not going to wear a mask every minute of every day, but give our teachers an opportunity. Listen, we teach them everything now. So are we willing to take up the responsibility of trying to teach them what we feel is important as to why they wear a mask, or trying to show them how we as a group together work together to overcome adversity? We absolutely believe that we can do that. So parents, please understand we're going to work with your kids when they show up on our campuses on August 11th and 12th, and then everybody shows up on the 13th, and we're off and running.
Off to the races. And it sounds like there's a lot of good things going on in the background as well that are going to lend themselves to this school year. So that's about all the time we've got. Oh, yes, go ahead.
No, I got one question, just kind of listening to it. We're talking about the mask mandate. And you talked about it earlier, that importance of face-to-face instruction.
Absolutely.
I mean, even though, yes, a lot of parents would have voiced, their own, disagreements with the mask mandate.
And that's okay.
And considering
that's
that
okay.
It's allowing y'all to have traditional face-to-face. I mean, does it, even though you don't want to say whether or not you agree with the mask mandate on its face, does it seem like at least a good trade-off to make sure kids are in school every single day?
I've got a couple comments on that, David, and I'll be happy to. Number one, yes, we feel like it gives our children the best opportunity to maintain that face-to-face instruction on a daily basis in our campuses. And I would point to last week's release from the State Department of Education, where it clearly showed a statistical advantage to children who were assessed and who had been face-to-face. So we absolutely do think it gives us our best opportunity. And let's face it, we want to be face-to-face. And I've said this last year, and I still believe it this year. Our parents want their children on our schools. They want them at school, and we want them at our school. Give us an opportunity to prove that this is the best for their children, that we can, if we do things right, maintain face-to-face instruction all year. And McHugh, I would assume you're getting ready to wrap this up because nobody wants to listen to me talk that long. There are a couple things that I would like to mention before we sign off today. There seems to be some question as to whether Livingston Parish Public Schools is or is not going to do some things. I don't know if that's the correct grammar. Or not going to do some things, maybe, rather than is.
Sure.
Hey, I'm a social studies major. I wasn't an English major. I'm sorry. Number one, and I want to be clear on this. We have no plans to vaccinate any children that come to Livingston Parish Public Schools. None. And the second thing that I keep hearing is that we're going to turn our schools into COVID testing sites. Let me be clear. We have no plans to turn our schools into COVID testing sites. I think those two statements that I've heard give me cause for concern, because people make the assumption because we're complying with the governor's mandate, the next naturalized step is to vaccinate children. We have said all along that we feel like the vaccination of children has been best left to their parents and their medical provider. We're not changing our stance on that. So no, parents, we're not going to vaccinate your children. And then, of course, secondly, our job is to educate our children. Our job is not to create testing sites at our schools. Now, with that said, some districts will choose to do that. However, I think that we need to listen to our community and try to meet the norms. And our job is to educate your children and also to keep them safe. So we do feel like by following the governor's proclamation, we give our children the best opportunity to remain face-to-face this year and be successful in our classrooms.
Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. If you'll take one last time to introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Joe Murphy. I am Superintendent of Livingston Parish Public Schools. And yes, I love my job, and I love our kids, and I love our schools, and more importantly, I love our community. Help us be successful this year. And thank you for your time today.
And my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, joined by Mr. David Gray, sitting over here to my left. Please remember the news is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays. That's $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. As Mr. Murphy said, we appreciate you joining us today. Thanks for taking the time to listen, and we will see you next time.